05-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
My enemies' walls are bound to crumble, and to the floor their spears will fall. I've been made and sealed with love, but time to battle, I'll find them all. I felt the whips and remember chains, but my sword has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name.
I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened, I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turned Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to commit it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them.
Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You are everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of flesh. Send down your warriors with the hello, they carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming, I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could it be that we decide?
No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and Pity Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations, 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, and 92.9 Sister Round Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on on the live video, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, a special good morning to you. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Friday morning. Friday is the best day of the week because it starts the weekend. And with me in studio is none other than my co-host, Mr. Roland Bola. Good morning, Senator Bola.
Good morning to you, Miss Duncan, and good morning to all our listeners out there. I really do hope that everyone, including yourself, Miss Duncan, had a really peaceful and restful night, and that your morning has been good thus far. As you have said, it's a beautiful Friday morning. I don't know if everyone would agree with you that Friday is the best day of the week. I know it is the last official working day for many people. For many people. It is the day when some people look forward to having the first little hangout or lime out for the week, on a Friday night. Friday night hang, what have you. I mean, not as much these days as probably before, because we're still very much in COVIDious times, as the saying goes, and so I presume that those who would normally use the Friday evening for a little lime, a little hangout, a little drink with the boys or a cook up on the block or whatever you used to do, most likely these days spending much of it at home. Doing family stuff or family style activities, or probably just catching up on some chores or getting some added rest, whatever you may be doing. I really do hope that everyone is okay. For those who are not feeling 100% health-wise, or for some other reason, I really do hope and pray that it would not take too long before you are able to discover exactly what is responsible for you feeling that way or being the way you are, and that you will be able to take corrective actions. But whatever it is, let us all be thankful. Let us all be grateful that we are at least in the land of the living and have an opportunity to spend another day in God's wonderful creation. So let's do what we had to do. Let's push the differences that we have with each other or within our lives, or within the family, or wherever or whatever it is that may be causing us some discomfort at this time. Put it aside, and of course, let's enjoy the ride. Let's listen to Hard Talk. And we urge you to be part of the conversation, be part of what is happening, either with a comment, sending us something on WhatsApp, or a phone call to express yourself, as the case may be. So good morning to everyone. Really do hope that you're having a good morning, and, a very, very, very extra special good morning to some of my really good friends. They are all at different parts of the island, including Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and I dare not call their name this morning, except to say to my loving wife, good morning, dear. I know you're listening, and sometimes you're looking, like you did yesterday, to make sure that I was sitting in this chair.
Well, which other chair are we sitting in?
Well, we could have exchanged chair, Miss Duncan. You could have been sitting here and I'm sitting over there.
Okay.
Isn't that possible?
No.
It's not. Okay. Well, I used to think so. No, I'm absolutely clear that is not possible. So, have a good day, everyone. Let's get it going.
All right, guys. And of course, as we promised, we will continue the conversation that we started yesterday, because there was so much that needs to be said, that needed to be said, that was not said because, there's a lot to talk about. And of course, we didn't get an opportunity for us to have some calls. We are expecting, however, to place or to receive a very special call to join us in the conversation somewhere along the lines. And we do know that we are having a bit of technical difficulties, network issues today. So please bear with us in the event that, something happened. Technology, you know how it goes. So, Mr. Bola, yesterday we started a very interesting conversation surrounding a letter that was sent out by the Grenadian Union of Teachers, an official statement, as it may be, regarding the 4% increase. And of course, it's not just, and I want to make that clear, although the official statement or an official statement came from the Grenada Union of Teachers, they are not the only people that, or the only workers, I should say, that are, I don't want to say up in arms, because it's not really up in arms, but do not really agree with the deferral of the 4%.
Well, the request for a deferral.
Request for a deferral. Yes. I did listen yesterday to a press conference, joint press conference held by the various unions, public workers, technical and allied workers union, and also the Grenadian Union of Teachers representative was there as well in speaking. And again, the topic of whether they deserve it or not came up, and I think that it needs to be reiterated that there is absolutely no query as to who does or does not deserve it. There is no qualms about that. We are not saying that nobody actually is saying that they don't deserve it. They deserve it. The question is, can it be done? Is it feasible in this current time? And what really is the next move? You know, what are we going to do from here? Because in the letter that we all had an opportunity to hear, they are indicating that yes, we understand. We know the problems that government is having. We understand the challenges faced by government. Right? Government being the employer. So it's like me walking in here today and telling my boss, I understand that you're having problems, but I'm a business, I want my money still. It's basically like saying that. Because as we always say here, government is a business. And no employer is going to put their, what did this, put their hand where your heart can reach?
Well, that's what our foreparents used to often them say to us, don't ever hang your hat where you know your hand can reach. Because then you'd either have to climb up on a bench, a stool, a ladder or something to get it, or you may have to get some extended stick or so to get it down. And in doing those things, there's always danger. You can either fall off the ladder, the bench, one of the legs can break, and damage yourself. In other words, they're saying, keep things within your reach, within your control. Do the things that you are capable of doing within a certain time and a certain space. And I think in that instance, this is what the government is saying. Look, we are not in a position financially, and the economy is not as strong as it used to be. And the reason, they have given the reason for that is because of COVID-19. We all know, and COVID-19 is not a makeup, it's not a secret thing. There are those who have the comments about where it came from, how it started, why it is here. That is a separate conversation, whether you believe it is man-made or not, and so. But it's here, it's real, it's there, it's affecting people. And as a result, has caused government to have to find and spend a lot of resources that was not budgeted or catered for. A lot of what should be now in the kitty to ensure that the public servants get their 4% increase at the end of this month has been used to do many other things for quarantine, ensuring that people are safe, for assisting with that stimulus package for many of those who were out of work and are still out of work. There are many people who were out of work for months and they are still out of work up till today because the sector in which they work has been so badly affected as a result of the pandemic that they have not been able to return to work and can't find a new job because, let's face it, most things came to a halt. I mean, there was a period of time when we were under total lockdown, when there was absolutely no movement, when nothing was happening. Businesses was closed. Remember those days when supermarkets opened once or twice per week, and even the days when people had to go and shop based on your surname in alphabetical orders. So today you had A to whatever, tomorrow from F to whatever, what as the case may be. Let's not forget those things so quickly. And all of those had negative impacts and effects on the government's ability to collect revenue or to generate the revenue, which is what you would need to ensure that people get the increase in their salaries and wages. right? So the issue of whether they deserve, the issue of whether government have to pay, the issue of government promising to pay is not in contention here. Right. All of those are established facts, which the government has admitted to, which the government know that they have an obligation to fulfill, because it was the government negotiating team that sat with the unions in 2019 and came up with what they both thought was reasonable for the workers to receive, and reasonable enough that government should be in a position to give. So that is why in 2020 January, the public servants, inclusive of the teachers, because they are public servants, got a 4% increase. That is why they were looking forward January of this year, this month that we are in, at the end of the month, in getting their salary, it would have increased by another 4%, and they're looking forward to 2022 so to do as well. However, along the pathway from 2020 to now, we have seen what has happened. It is as a result of COVID-19. In 2020, when the public servants was due to get their 4%, there was nothing about deferral. There was no request from government to say, well, listen, I find 4 a little too high, or maybe we should break it down. No. It was signed for, it was received. And the government, from what I know and understand, had all intents, all purposefully preparing to pay the next 4% increase January this year. Because remember, January, February, March, June, July, up to of last year, government did not say we can't pay. It was coming down. After the third quarter, or within the third quarter, getting into the fourth quarter, having analyzed the impact of COVID and what it has done, made the approach to the unions to say, well, look, the situation as it is now would not give us the room, to be able to implement immediately, as we have planned before, this 4% increase. In fact, I think what the government officially asked was to have, I think officially the first move was to say, let's forego it. And then the unions were the ones who said, no, well, we can't do that. We can't sell that to our workers. We understand the situation, but we have to get it at some time. And then the issue of deferral came up, and the conversation continued. Up to this point now where the unions are deciding, from what they have said, to start with some soft sort of protest action. I will call it that. Industrial action. By wearing your union's T-shirts and so on and so. And I hope it won't. I hope that good sense will prevail on all sides. But whenever you see this soft industrial actions are being taken, generally speaking, it then goes into something more serious, until you probably get to the point where there is withholding of labor and all those kind of things.
But I just hope that, and it needs to be said, that I hope that if it does get to that point, that everyone is now of the understanding that if you withhold your labor, your employer has the right, by law, just as you have the right by law to withhold your labor, your employer has the right to withhold, compensation because you didn't work.
Yeah, well, that is well established in law, and again, I don't think this is an issue that is what or needs to be debated. Sometimes people have the different views, but if you go to the law, it's straight, it's very clear. It's not something that is hard for any one of us to understand once we get an opportunity to see how it is clearly spelled out in law. I hope we doesn't get to all those get that far, to take industrial actions of that nature. And sometimes when we speak those issues. There are those who may feel, well, you hear them, they're trying to defend the government because they are NNP. Yes, I'm a supporter of the New National Party. There's no doubt about it. I make no secret about it. I represented and ran an NNP ticket on 3 occasions and was victorious thanks to the people of St. Andrews Northeast. I served in the lower house for 3 terms, twice in government, once in opposition. I've been asked only recently to go back to the Senate for a while. For those who doesn't understand and don't know that, because I know too that some people believe and have said, and I've been told, oh, well, we see you back, you're back into the thing. You said you give up. Of course. I have retired from governmental, as I said it, governmental politics. I mean, the politics of vying for a seat and, representing people. But I'm still very much involved in the political arena. I am with my party engaged. I'm still the General Secretary of the New National Party, so there's no secret. But what we're doing here now, and what I'm saying here now, is not about my political affiliation. It's about a situation that I believe people who understands it and people who knows what is happening can lend a voice to, right? And I am in no way, and I will not go along the lines that some people have gone along and talk about teachers or public servants as they, they may itemize it to say teachers or police or whoever, or some generalize it and say public servants are too greedy. I won't say that. I think they deserve. They have earned it. They have negotiated for it. The government has agreed to give it.
And the government will pay it.
And the government has said that we will pay it.
Yeah, the question is not if they are
issue,
going to pay.
And that's just the issue there is. We are not in a position to pay it now.
Exactly.
Can you allow us some deferral to a date later? Yeah. And then you hear some people argue, well, you say not now, but you didn't say when. But the government also gave a reason why they could not say when. They've said, listen, we are dealing with a pandemic. We are dealing with something that has affected the economies of countries far richer, better, have more resources. They are more resourceful than we are. They are larger than we are. They have greater ability to raise finance than we have. Some of them have resources that the rest of the world need, like oil and gas and other minerals. And they too had to kneel and bow because of COVID. The health system has been shattered. People are dying. Millions are still sick. The UK, Canada, and some other places, they're still on lockdown up to today. They are seeing new strains up to last night. Dr. Is it Fauci? Fauci. Was saying that even the vaccine that they're giving, he's confident that the new strain, the variant that they found in London, in Europe, that it will take care of it. But they're still worried because they have to do a lot more testing, and they're not sure that a different variant again found in Africa,
South Africa,
whether it will take care of it. So we are seeing the dynamics of this thing just changing. And as we have said on this program many times before, that COVID-19 is still a very fluid thing. It changes. There's no one size fits all. You can do something today that may work, but tomorrow, because it mutates so well and it changes in the way it affects people, and different people in different areas can have different kind of symptoms, and well, not necessarily symptoms, but it may react on you differently.
Yeah.
So as a small island developing state, we are in a position where we depend heavily on what happens outside of Grenada to make determinations as to how we can move, because we are linked, whether we like it or not. What happens in the US, what happens in Canada, what happens in Europe, what happens in Africa affects us in one way or the other, whether we trade with them or because of the people who we trade with, who trade with them or do business with them or rely on them. We get some kind of effect down the line. So the government has said, listen, our hope is, based on our projections, that things are going to change and things are going to turn around, in a reasonable time. But we cannot put our fingers on it to say, a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. So here's what we will offer you. And opportunity on a quarterly basis every 3 months. So come March month, end of March, all of the numbers will be crunched and put together, so you as union representatives can have a look at it, can take it, can bring it to your own independent accountant or an accounting firm or friends that you have that have an understanding of economics and how economies rule and what is happening, and can crunch the numbers for you and give you their own assessment of where things are and where things are leading. Don't just take the government's word for it.
Yeah.
That is what we can offer you now. And as we do that, on a quarterly basis, and assessments are being made, a determination then will be made, well, we are in a better position now, so we can do X or Y, or we can take this move or that move in consultation with the union.
Yeah.
You know? And the union in turn can inform their clientele, which are the workers, whichever union you're with, whether you're with TAU or public workers or teachers or what have you. So it is still very mystifying to me and maybe to some other people, while it might be as clear as water to some others, that some people still seem to be bunching everything together.
Yeah.
So issues about, when the government duck we wage, and government didn't duck. We keep making that point. The labor laws give
The
workers
employer.
as well as the employee. So as an employee, no one can force you to work. You can withhold labor, you can stay home, you can decide you're not working today or tomorrow or next week or for a month, you know. But it also says what you need to do in instances like that. If you're going to take time off, you need to inform your employer and so they can make alternative arrangements if they have to and what have you. But that same law, that same bit of legislation says, look, an employer is under no obligation to give you any money if you did not work, if you didn't produce, if you didn't labor. Right. There are those who feel that the government did something that was draconian by withholding, even if you have withheld your labor.
Yeah.
The matter is before the court. So I say to people, why do you drag that into today's issue?
Mm-hmm. If you believe that what the government did was illegal, then it should not be added to anything else, because basically what they're trying to do is say to government, okay, well, if we have to defer, then give us the money that you owe to us. But if you believe that it was something they did that was illegal, it is in court, then you should not be afraid that it would rule in your favor. You know, so in my opinion, Mr. Bola, I just see this as a way for them to, and this is just my opinion, for them to get as much as they can out of government for this very small agreement.
Well, nothing is wrong in trying to get as much as you want. I mean, I don't disagree with the unions. I'm being very frank here. If you can squeeze an apple to get a cup of juice or a glass of juice, but I can squeeze the same apple and get a glass and a half, should I say because you couldn't get a glass and a half, I shouldn't get it too? No, so you know, and I want to be as balanced and fair as possible, right? But I still say the government knows how much juice it can give and how much it cannot give, and when it can give juice, right? You may find that during the rainy season, apples may have more juice than in the dry season. I don't know. Or oranges. Maybe we don't grow apples here, so maybe we can say oranges. If I have a mechanism through which I can squeeze more juice out of my orange, so be it. But I can only get as much as it has to offer. A stronger hand may get a bit more than a weaker hand. But you cannot, no hand, as strong as you be, cannot get out more than it has.
Right.
What it has is what it has. And the government is saying, we don't have it at this time. And that is very important. Eh? It's not that we don't have it ever. It's not that we won't try to get it at all. But at this time, and the reason was given why they don't have it at this time. COVID. It's there for everybody to see. Everybody knows what has happened. Everybody knows that the whole of Grenada should know, and let me don't say everybody knows, should know, based on all the publications that was done, that government had to expend funds in preparing the hospital differently to how it was, having isolated rooms and beds and ventilators and all of those things. They didn't come free. Nobody knew that COVID was coming. All of the quarantine facilities, yes, the more upscale ones, people had to pay their own money if you wanted to go there. But for those who couldn't pay, especially Grenadians returning home, government had a responsibility to find a place for them to be. It came with a cost. All of the nurses and other people that are going around in communities and doing all what they're doing to ensure that the testing is done, all the testing equipment and improving on the laboratory and bringing in new equipment, all of those costs. I mean, so let's not pretend we don't know what has been happening or where a lot of the monies have been spent. And let's not muddy everything. Everything doesn't have to go into the water, but we can be very civil. We can sit and we can have, and we say it here most times, that we can disagree, but we don't have to be disrespectful or disruptive.
And I think in this case, disruptive is the most important word.
Yeah. So we don't have to be disruptive. We don't have to mash everything up around us. As our foreparents used to say, we don't have to burn the whole church down just because we want to catch a mouse.
And it's quite unfortunate because was it yesterday or the day before on a call-in program, I heard a gentleman call to give a contribution, and in his contribution he's saying, "Oh, shut the whole country down." Shut the country down. Yes, give them their 4%. And if they don't get it, shut the country down. And in my mind, I'm wondering, well, for what? And how?
Well, maybe you think differently, you see differently. And so people have an opportunity and a right to voice their concerns or their opinions in some instances. Sometimes it's not generally a concern, but it's just an opinion. And we have to accept the fact that sometimes there are those among us who just speak out words because they can call them or they have a voice. Their tongue can move in a certain direction to give them voice, so they just go ahead and talk.
Absolutely.
Not because they have assessed the situation, not because they want to make a valid contribution. And even those who are capable at times to make valid contributions, they make contributions because what they say suits their cause.
Suits their cause.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
And not because it fits into the general picture and it will help this country as a whole.
Yep.
Because oftentimes, I say, when we have to make a decision, and the best of us sometimes falter. So I'm not saying that to make anyone believe that Roland Bola is a perfect human being that makes no mistakes. Of course, I'm guilty of making a lot of mistakes, of doing things. And so too is the government, because you're active and you're trying to get things done. And sometimes in haste, or sometimes there are just some things that never came to mind in all of the discussions that you had. Yeah. And that's why consultation cannot be too widespread, or you cannot say or ask questions too many times, because the way you view it, the way the intelligentsia around you view it, may be totally different to how a little ordinary man way up in the mountainside who nobody thinks about sees the same issue and have a different perspective on the same issue. Yep. But we must try as much as possible to take the big picture in hand, to look at everything. And no eyes is bright enough to see everything on their own.
Yeah.
That's why we are independent individuals and independent country, but we are interdependent still.
Yeah.
We rely on each other. We rely on each other's thought process. We rely on each other's ability to do things differently because we have different skill sets.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying here that we need, in moving forward with this particular issue, not to just be myopic in our views, not to just see right before our nose, but to ensure that all of us benefit at the end of the day.
All right. We are expecting, as I said, a very special call from an individual who will be able to weigh in on the situation and, of course, provide more detail. But in waiting for that call, I do want to appeal to everyone. Let your better judgment prevail in this. You know, oftentimes when you hear about unions and government in negotiation, it's often contentious, and it doesn't have to be.
Not at all.
It does not have to be a fight. The purpose of a union is not just to allow its workers to strike. Before you hear union, you're thinking strike. Before you hear union, you're thinking about some industrial action. It does not have to be that way. What happened to conversation? What happened to consideration? And I did hear and also read in the letter that they're saying that the government is saying they're inconsiderate. I never heard any government representative saying that they're inconsiderate. What I did hear was them asking for some level of consideration. It doesn't mean that you're inconsiderate. It just means to consider the situation at hand. That is what needs to be done at this point, because we are not going to get anywhere if every time government and unions meet, it's a clash of the titans. It's a fight. It's contention. Then you hear people with political agendas speaking about the closing down of the country because they figure that it has to be some sort of riot and some rivalry. And we spoke about this here many times, that we have to get away from this mentality of Grenada is a revolutionary island, and therefore we must behave in this way. You know, we have to get away from that place. And I feel like a call wants to come in, but because we have so many network issues, I see it coming and then it just disappears. So I'm not quite sure what is happening. I'm going to try again to get that call, or maybe we may need to call out Mr. Bola.
That may be the better thing. And I see someone saying on the live here that since the unions don't seem to care, pay the 4%. And lay off some civil servants. Well, you know, that's an opinion that person is sharing, but the issue is there is no 4% available to be paid. Right. You know, and is it true that the unions don't care? Maybe the actions appear to be that way, but I honestly don't believe that they don't care.
I think they care. I think the problem is, as with a lot of things in the country, is that we have a lot of people in leadership positions with political agendas. So a little bit of politics always gets mixed up in the meat of the matter, and then you lose purpose of what you are doing because you're so angry at this administration that you want to at every turn show them up to be villainous.
But that's not politics. That's anger, you know, because I'm listening to you clearly, and it will give an impression that politics is such a bad thing. That anytime politics get involved, things have to be bad. Politics is not a bad thing. But there are some bad-mannered people in politics.
Bad-mannered.
There are some of us who has, you know, bad intentions that gets into politics. Yeah. But politics in and of itself is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Politics is meant to be something where you can bring people together, where you can unite people, where you can do things together so that people's lives and their livelihoods and that of the future generation can be better off than where we met it.
Absolutely.
And some people coming with that very good intention but get spoiled along the way. And believe it or not, a lot of times the politicians themselves coming with a good, honest, clean heart and wanting to do the thing. It is the people most times who circulate and surrounds us that influences the politicians. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, and please, I don't want people to think that I'm blaming people for my faults or for the fault of any other politician. But I am aware of the fact that sometimes people come, they whisper things in your ear, they tell you things, you know, they're confidence of yours, and they give you information that sounds to be authentic and true and credible, and you take decisions, or you cause decisions to be taken sometimes, because a lot of the times you can't take the decision on your own, but you can influence a decision, you can cause a decision to be taken based on the information that has been given to you. And sometimes they are not authentic information.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mr.
Morning, sir. Morning.
How you doing?
Very well for now, thank you. Thank God.
Mr. Bola, I gave some message on the WhatsApp to call back at certain number. You haven't called back yet. Right?
Well, that was how long ago?
Yeah, a couple of weeks back. Anyway.
Okay, well, I'm absolutely sorry for that. Maybe we didn't pick up on that one, Ms. Duncan.
Let me just congratulate you on your presentation on the Senate in the House, and
thank you, sir.
The upper house was very well received. And I heard you were making some remarks to the other members of the House, right?
Yes, sir.
And I listened because I was listening. I was on walk. I listened, and to the new incoming senators who was appointed that day and the utterances, I was listening.
Yes.
Certain people see it as very welcoming. Certain people see it as very questionable. Yeah.
Yes.
My point is that I think the debate was the WRB and the government of Grenada debacle. What I was saying is that just let it calm down. Let it not sling each one words, we thinking, getting angry. The mark yesterday was given at 187, but we know what is being said and what's being produced in the media is 200 and change because you have to pay the lawyers of both sides and whatever. That be the case. I have no problem with that. The problem I'm having is that the letter that I read yesterday from the GUT, right, the teachers, and you guys elaborated afterwards that when you're not going to work for time of reflection and time of taking time off, the union tell the workers take time off. No,
yes.
I work in a company. The company I'm working for also tell me, I'm telling you, they tell me to take 3% percentage off till next year.
So you have a 3% cut in salary?
Yes.
Okay.
No, they say cut. They say forgo 3%.
Okay, forgo it. Right, okay.
So I am employed.
Yes.
I am employed. I'm at least for now. No, so I make a similarity that the government is saying to the teachers and civil servants, and it's not teachers alone, it's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like Mr. Roberts, to please come and explain what I call recurrent and current expenditure, because apparently that thin line between economics is not explaining. Money is spent now, like you said yesterday and maybe before, like 4%. If your salary is $1,000 now, and you get 10%, $1,010 next month, 2021, you get 2020.
Yeah.
It goes up. It's recurrent.
Mm-hmm.
Explain the thing slowly and surely for them because they're going on. And lastly, Mr. Bola and Mr. Duncan, I listen to radio programs,
mm-hmm.
and I was guided to a program called the Mac K program on Facebook. This guy is it's an American program. And apparently he's probably Republican. I'm making this reference.
Mm-hmm.
He is saying certain things and he's playing clips. very humorous but very dangerous because they are saying that words cannot damage. You know what I'm saying? Ron Paul said if you're going to charge a man for saying words, he cannot damage the world. Anyway, we agree. There is, I ain't calling him, a radio host program saying he's going ahead and have meetings maybe next month and time for action. I listen to them. And the two programs he has, and one in Carriacou, which he rides on, I listen to them. I hear a man called yesterday, and Mr. Bolan, listen very carefully what I heard. Mm-hmm. If I'm wrong, this guy is actually blaming or saying, and the lady that was from Carriacou, rest her soul, he's asking, where's the leaders? And where's the leaders? Why don't we shut down Carriacou and have a national day of touch for somebody that's missing? So the government's supposed to do that. The goodly lady, the minister in Carriacou, so in Carriacou, is just one person. And these guys on that program, I listen to them. I ain't calling him, you know the name. Them men saying, well, they're not killing such him. They answer the question,
yes. And
they say and they criticize. I look at ID. Discovery, and people missing families, they pass over graveside more than once, and and Kevin Campbell, not Campbell, Kevin Andrews is the guy name. This guy actually, and he's there, and them men going on, and that program supposed to be speak on Twitter. They're and I heard Kevin Andrews, the minister lie, Minister still lie, and they say what lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, listen what I'm telling you. The level of arrogance and the level of hatred that you hear on this program. Even yesterday, the host of that program yesterday morning had to distance himself when the man say Hanky Mitchell on some tree, and he come in and say, well, I want to say that. No, I listen to them, and I would tell you, brother, control yourself. Control yourself. Life doesn't go so.
Mm-hmm.
This country needs to get on this. And what is happening with these guys? If they want power, run for election fairly.
Yes.
Do it nicely and go on.
Yeah.
You call the commissioner of police a done fool, and you want permission to have meeting? Really? And you go sue the commissioner? Really? Keep me telling a more call? Really? 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 No. And Mr. Bola, I know, I have patience, but come on. When you're doing all these things and I will sue you, and then you go and say, Mountain, well, you have to send money for me and send money for me, and you have a woman calling and sing song and keep me, the doctor sick and that kind of nonsense. They are given, and if NEC doesn't distance themselves from this nonsense, they will always lose. I don't agree with everything Dr. Mitchell or any one of the ministers do at all times. I don't. And he said he was there, so and people have him as this kind of king. So nobody can touch him. But anyway, back to my point. Mr. Waller, you and Mrs. Duncan and Shannon Scott, you guys doing a good job.
Thank you. And
we the Grenadian people, whoever is supporting NNP, whatever party you support, I support NNP. I'm a member, a paid member. So I don't really care. They can't do me nothing. But I would expose them.
You don't care still. I mean, you don't care about what they say too much, but just care. Be careful.
I listen. I'm very careful. I listen every time. I listen very carefully because when this man play what Mr. Diali said, I was listening.
Yes.
Mr. Diali gave the Carriacou report, and they were mistaken in the Senate, and Mr. Bola, you were there.
Yes.
They were saying, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, oh God, is Mr. President? Come on. In the Senate. Get the act together. So when Mr. Diali was given his deliverance of the light bills and kilowatt things, this guy in Monge decided to use that and say, oh, well, we is not the highest in the Caribbean. Why do you ask the other islands? Because Mr. Diali only pinpoint 3 or 4.
4 islands he used: Grenada, Dominica, St. Vincent, St. Lucia.
And the report only gave 3 months at a time.
Yeah, and what he said really is that in terms of domestic, we were high is only the commercial rates. He said we were not the highest in.
Exactly, and the man said wait high, wait low. And I'm not saying that there's no reason why we cannot work harder and do the thing better. And where the issue of Grenada having to rent a machine or generator to generate current, Jesus Christ, they're trying to blind eyes to the bad deal that NEC did for 80 years, right? 80 years? Really? And by the way, if it is Chinese, and I said if, IF, look at your device in your hand, look at the computer in front of you. Where was it built?
Yep.
China? Where? Come on, brothers. Stop this xenophobia nonsense. I'm fed up. And Mr. Bola, I will say honestly,
yes.
Anytime this guy is meeting, you have to buy iPhone and send money. I'll be in a meeting there, and trust me, you're going to see me.
You have a good day. Take care. Enjoy your job. Are we getting through? We having this network problem.
But we do have to take a short break because I do want to put in a call to our guests because they're having difficulty calling in. So we're going to take a short break, guys, and then we will be back with an interesting guest and more conversation.
My feet upon the road. run away your mask today. You see everywhere you go. There are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy.
To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal.
When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.
Take the opportunity to save your community.
All right, guys, and we are back. And as promised, I put in a call to a very special guest who will be weighing in on the conversation, along with some other matters as it relates to the administration of education in our country. And on the line, I have the Honorable Minister for Education. Good morning, Minister Pear.
Good morning to you, Duncan. Good morning to all of your listeners, and, well, of course, those who are viewing you on the internet. I say again, good morning to everybody. My pleasure.
All right. So Mr. Bola and I began a conversation yesterday surrounding a letter that was sent out by the Grenada Union of Teachers surrounding the 4% deferral that was requested by government. And in the letter, they indicated that they were not willing to accept that request. And of course, they have started with some soft, as we call it, soft industrial action by the wearing of their T-shirts and so on. They also indicated in a recent interview that they have asked for a lot of other things that were promised to them, and they have not received word yet on that. Would you like to give us a little bit of insight from your end on how you view, or basically what government stand really is on the 4%?
Well, Duncan, I believe that this is a very simple issue. It's an unfortunate situation that we're in. But the question is, did we bring this situation onto ourselves? The answer is no. We are all aware of the times that we are in. We are all aware of the challenges that we face together. So this is a situation in which the government is challenged by COVID-19, a pandemic that is sweeping the world into fear and sweeping the world into challenges that some places people are even unable to cope. Millions of people are affected by this situation. So many people have died, including Grenadians overseas. So many people have lost their jobs because of this pandemic, and God knows for how long it will be with us. So we did not ask for COVID-19. It came suddenly. And if you ask me, and I believe most Grenadians are of that view, that the government has been doing an excellent job in managing the crisis and managing the situation so that at least we can have some semblance of normalcy as we try to get through this situation. So we are not in a situation where everybody throw their hands in the air and, we don't know what to do and, everything is falling apart. We are in a situation where we have been able to maintain a high level of stability through this crisis. And if you ask me, had I not been associated with this government, I would still be of the same view that the government needs to be commended and the people need to be commended as well for their support of the initiatives and the actions of the government, even when they're not enjoying those actions. And we can speak about the times when we couldn't come outside and we couldn't go to the supermarket. I mean, I've listened to people in recent times, and, sometimes the best thing we can do is to look at what is happening with other people and then appreciate what is happening with us. And so I've heard persons, after viewing the situation in St. Vincent, for example, as many as 700 cases, and the approach that was taken there, I've heard ordinary people said, well, now I understand why we had to close the border at one time. Now I understand why we had to be home and we couldn't go outside. Now I understand why we have to spend 14 days in quarantine. Because if you don't take drastic actions in a particular time, it makes it very difficult for you to maintain control of a crisis, maintain control of the situation. So let us bring all of that in the context of this 4% that we speak about. Now, I believe, and I strongly believe this, that had it not been for this situation, the government would have been in a much better position to honor its commitment to workers. It is not normal. It is not tradition that the government makes a decision to pay an increase and then the government holds back on that commitment. That is not normal. And so we are all clear, I believe, that the situation as it relates to COVID-19 has forced the government as it relates to its ability to make that payment. So the government is subdued in this situation and it is unable. Why? Because logically, if you are collecting far less in revenue, if you are collecting far less at the ports, if your incoming flights are not normal, and all of those other means through which you collect revenue is affected because of this situation, quite obviously you have less to give. So less you get, less you can give.
Right.
And so it is as simple as this. Now, I don't think there's any person in government, I'm very convinced about that, there's no one in this government that feels happy about this situation. There's no one who feels, well, thank God we cannot make this payment. Everyone is concerned that we are not able to meet this obligation. Who wants to be in a position where you make a commitment, you say you're going to do something, and then you're unable to do it?
Yeah.
But I believe the bottom line is that persons out there understand why. As a matter of fact, if we refer to the statement that you speak of, that was released by the union, it says, and its heading is, we deserve 4% increase. I have no problem with that. I agree, they do deserve it, right? Many of our teachers, and I always like to qualify that because we cannot say all of our teachers. We have serious challenges with some of our teachers in the system, but many of our teachers work very hard. They produce, and they deserve what they're getting and more. Right. Just like many of our public officers, I do believe that we have a lot of people in the system who work hard. Right. So that's the heading. We deserve our 4%, and I totally agree with this. If somebody asks me, what do you think? Do they deserve it? I would say, of course they do. And then the first paragraph that introduces this statement says that the Grenada Union of Teachers is quite disappointed with the recent pronouncement by the government as it relates to the 4% increase due to our teachers. I absolutely have no problem with this. If you expect a 4% increase and the person who has to give you say, I cannot give you any more, I don't expect you to be happy. It is okay to be disappointed, no problem, right? And so I empathize, I understand, and I understand why persons are disappointed. That's quite okay, right? Then it goes on to say that they are quite aware of the challenges faced by the government regarding the generating of revenue. So it means that they understand. They know that government is collecting far less. And probably if it drops lower, we might not even be able to pay salaries because it's revenues that help the government to pay salaries. So it appears that they do understand that. And it says that regarding the generating of revenues, and in a recent statement, the government of Grenada outlined reasons why its revenue collection has been down. Awesome, right? It is a good place when people understand what is happening and the circumstances. But I find it a bit strange that the third paragraph goes off on a tangent. So after you're disappointed and you understand why the government is unable to raise the revenue to give you the increase, then you say, be that as it may, right? It is the same government that was able to find $200 million to buy back the company that is most part has been serving Grenadians well over the past 20 years. Well, let's just focus on that paragraph. And I'm only dealing with this because you made reference to that statement, right, which I am happy to clarify. So the first part of that third paragraph where they went off on a tangent is saying that, be that as it may, so we understand the challenges, we are disappointed, but government was able to find monies to buy back Grenlec, and I'll deal with the second part of that paragraph. Now, let's deal with the first part. Yes, government found the resources to buy back the shares that the court ordered the government to buy back, right? And I'm so thankful to God that this was possible. Because as I always say, if government could not find the resources in the capital side of the budget to do this, then guess what would happen? The court would garnish the account, and the court would take whatever that is there. They don't care now about capital and recurrent. They would take whatever is available to pay that debt. You know what that means? It means that ordinary contractors who the government owes would not be able to get their monies. It means that ordinary people who are working, cleaning in the school, cooking in the school would not be able to get their monies. Imani trainees would not be able to get monies at the end of this month. And I dare say, even teachers' salaries would have been questioned in terms of government ability to pay. So did we prefer that scenario over government using capital savings? And I think the Prime Minister was very clear. Some people say the Prime Minister say it don't matter where the money comes from. He don't care where the money comes from. You know, let's just be real and let's be honest with ourselves. It has been explained over and over and over again that it was because of COVID-19 and some savings on projects that we did not implement that government was able to find these additional resources that they could have paid that we cannot use to pay anything under recurrent expenditure like salaries because of legal implications that the government would have. And of course, government wants to be responsible in the managing of the economy and its resources.
Right.
So when you put in a document that is public like this, a statement that implies that government could pay us because they paid for the shares in Grenlec, it tells me that you're either A, attempting to mislead those who don't know and don't understand, or B, that you don't understand yourself. But I hate to believe that at this stage, there's anyone who doesn't understand that A, government could not have used the resources that it used to buy the shares to pay recurrent expenditure, because you cannot use capital funds to pay recurrent expenditure, right? So this there is a little bit misleading, and it does not help people to better understand the situation.
Right.
And then that paragraph ends with a very worrying statement, very, very worrying in my view. For the most part, so government would have bought back the shares from a company, for the most part, has been serving Grenadians well over the past 20 years. Now, I still consider myself to be a Grenadian. I've been here. I've never been anywhere else. And if you ask me, I cannot agree with this statement in the context of all of the reasons we have given why people, ordinary people, are uncomfortable with the rates, the cost of electricity, and all of the challenges as we move to alternative sources of energy, that you and anyone else, myself, anybody else, should be able to access alternative means of energy to cut cost savings. And of course, because government is one of the biggest funding sources, right, along with other private companies, that government can now look at savings that can now be plowed back, that can now go back to help ordinary poor people in our societies. People who want to get into small businesses would now have a better chance. So if I agree that for the most part, this has been serving us well, I would say we would have been far better advanced as a nation and as a people if we did not have that situation existing for the last 20 years. It's a serious disservice that we did ourselves, and of course, we have been able to correct this, and we can now move forward. So, looking at the publication, it concerns me that it is not very clear as it relates to what the situation is and what is confronting government at this time. Government has been backwards as it relates to providing opportunities, as it relates to meeting the needs of, and I dare say, to consistently every month in the midst of a crisis to be able to pay public officers and pay them on time. That is a challenge for government, a challenge that no one seems to be observing in this scenario. But government continues. So even when the country was shut down, no one can go to the office. When in other countries we're talking about cutting salaries. So I've been, for example, on council meetings, and I'll just give one example, University of the West Indies. And I remember very early in all of this, the council met, all of the campuses came with their budget, and everyone had to go back to make further cuts. Everyone. And you know what stood out to me? And this was when everybody in Grenada was at home and government consistently continued to pay. You know what was the presentation from the various campuses? Our staff recognizing the situation. And I remember, I don't remember if it was UE Barbados particularly, but the presentation was our staff recognizing the challenge has decided that they are going to take an X% cut in salaries. We never, as a government, placed this on the table for discussion.
Yeah.
Other countries were doing it. I listened in the case of Antigua. I was listening to the news this morning, and the Prime Minister was making the point. In other words, do not expect an increase. It is just impossible during this crisis. Yeah. And they were not just talking about don't expect an increase. They were talking about other measures. So he was speaking to the hotel industry, and he even went as far as to say, these are all of the things that you are benefiting from now. Effective so-and-so date, these things will be no more because we cannot afford to maintain it.
Right.
right? And the point I'm making is not that we have to go this route, but the point I'm making is this. In the case of Grenada, government has been working extremely hard to protect livelihoods and to support persons who have lost their jobs. What we've done for the taxi men and the vendors and all of these people was government bending backwards. And I say bending backwards because this was not a time when revenue was coming in increase. So this is not something we normally did. But we went to do it in the midst of a crisis because we felt the pain of these people and felt that we needed to do something.
Yeah.
Now note that while government was doing this, revenues were going downwards. But think about, let us just use the hotel sector as an example, Duncan. Now think about how many people have lost their jobs. I've had to deal with cases of people coming to my office. They were working with sandals. They were working with this one. They were working with that one. And you can't blame the hotel sector because if you have no guests coming in or the number of guests, they are so small, how do you pay your electricity bill, which is already so high? How do you pay staff? How do you maintain the services that you provide? It is impossible.
Yeah.
And so we understand why the hotel sector is a business, right? Now, if government was functioning as a business, many public officers would have to go home.
Yeah.
But you see, government subsidize, government take pain, government bend backward to make sure that it takes care of people that it serves to the extent that it is able to. So when governments say we cannot pay the 4%, it is because government cannot find the additional resources. And you're probably saying to government, well, we don't care, just pay us. So we don't care how many people you have to send home. We don't care how much you have to cut the Money program. We don't care how much you have to cut the seed program. Just find the money and pay us. Now, that approach to me is not one that is sustainable, and it is not one that encourages an atmosphere of care and love and concern in a crisis. So I cannot see how government, for example, would say, we must send home 1,000 workers, or we must send home 500 workers, or we must send home 50 Mani trainees because we want to provide an increase in salary to some workers. Now, I would have thought that every person, understanding, as they indicated that they do, the current situation, that what they would do is to sit and work with government to say, we understand the challenge, but all we need is your commitment that we are going to get the monies down the road, which is what government is simply asking. We don't have it now. So it's like coming to your house and say, Duncan, you owe me $500, I need it tonight. And you're pleading with me to say, Emmeline, I want to pay you the $500. I will pay you the $500, but I have no money at home tonight. I will have to go to the teller. I would have to go to the bank. I would have to do this. I would have to do that. I may even have to borrow it from my mother to be able to give you. And I say to you, I don't care. I want it tonight. Find it tonight. I must have it tonight. No, if you don't have it, you cannot find it. The question is, what do you do? And all we are saying, give us a little more time. Give us some time to be able to at least get out of this situation, that we're able to get back on our feet again and collect the amount of revenues that we normally collect, and then we are going to pay. Now, I have heard one argument, which is, we could do that. We could defer, but you must do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we cannot wait.
Right.
Now, I listen to what this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is, and I'm convinced that it puts us in a worse situation than we're even in right now. And so all government is asking for is understanding. We've already committed that we're going to give you the increase. We are not saying that we're taking back that commitment, All we're asking is to push the commitment down the road a little bit to give us breathing space. That's all we're asking. And I am surprised that some persons find it difficult to understand this and to support this. And I just continue to appeal to all concerned to put yourself in the situation. Put yourself in the driving seat of running this country at this time. So we talk about PPEs, and we talk about going on in the community and doing rapid tests. We talk about providing sanitizers to schools. Well, the reality is that these things are not hanging from a tree somewhere. There's a cost that goes with all of these things. And I'll tell you something. We had to find an additional $2 million to be able to support additional support services in schools just for this term.
Right.
And we don't know what is going to happen after this term because we don't have the monies to continue. The bottom line is it's a crisis. Government has to put out far more than it has ever put out before for additional things that it never catered for. We never pictured that this is going to happen. And I dare say we have only survived thus far because this government has done an excellent job in managing the resources that it has. So there's only one reason that government has been able to do some of the things that it has done in the past, in the recent past, during COVID-19, and that is because of management of the economy.
All right. Now, Minister, I'm glad that you spoke about resources and, of course, spoke about all of the things that we had to expend government resources on, such as PPEs and so on. But on the educational side, a lot has been done and a lot continues to go on in terms of resources. Now, we don't know where COVID is going, when it's going to be over, how long we are going to have to remain on the virtual scene, or if we are just going to need to integrate it into our now education system so that in the event something like this happens again, we are ready, we are prepared. And I know government has put together or pulled together a lot of resources to help with that. We have the distribution of tablets for the students of secondary schools, soon the distribution of tablets for the primary schools, but also it has come to my attention that teachers of both primary and secondary school, those who have not yet received, and some have already received, brand new computers and tablets as well to assist them in completing their duties virtually.
Right, and just before responding to this, I just want to refer to one more comment in that article from the Teachers Union that says that government should invest in workers as government invested in Grenlec. Now, I want us to remember one thing, that Grenlec belonged in majority shares to a private company, and a private company that is not based in Grenada, U.S. based, right? Now, what this buyback of shares means is that those shares now belong to the state, Grenada. It's ours. So whether you're a teacher, you're a nurse, you're a farmer, you are whatever, it belongs to us, Grenadians, right? And government has also hinted its intention to sell shares. And I'm sure that we would have teachers who would have interest and may probably consider buying shares in the company. So what government did there is not for government and the cabinet and members of government. It is for the people of Grenada. So it's an investment in teachers. It's an investment in police officers, in every citizen of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. So let us not speak about the buying back of the shares in Grenlec as if it is an activity that is not going to benefit every person in Grenada, right? So this is something that we should be proud of, we should be happy about, and we should now be working with the government to make sure it works in our favor as Grenadians, citizens of Grenadians. So let us now turn our attention to the Ministry of Education. And this is just one ministry in government. I want you to imagine what the expenditure would have been in the Ministry of Health, for example, during this period, right? Now, for everyone, COVID-19 came as a shock. And you had to now decide that you're going to sit down and sit back and wait it out, right? Do nothing, wait it out. Or you get up and you respond and you build your resilience and you ensure that you do not allow COVID-19 to kill you. And when I say kill there, I am using a metaphor in terms of the effect that it would have had on the economy and our continuation of life. Our response was excellent. And I'm not just talking government. I'm talking in terms of other aspects of the society. We were affected, but we stood up. We stood to this, right? So even during this period, busmen decided, look, we're going to spray and sanitize people, but we're going back to work, right? Businesses decide, look, we're going to put measures in place and we're going to go back to work. People didn't just sit back and say, well, let's just see when COVID is going to be gone. There was a response that was triggered, and I believe every Grenadian needs to be commended for their resilience and their response. It is the same with government. Government took some decisions to give support to various ministries in government as part of that response, and education was no exception. So our commitment through the e-learning program, the e-learning initiative in its entirety thus far, we are talking about an investment of over $20 million, right? And I'm talking about the full rollout of that program. Now, that's $20 million that we had no intention of spending immediately, that we had to find to be able to facilitate. But these are capital projects. And so guess what? Where did we find it? People like to know where you find it. So where did you find it? We had to go into Budget A. That is our GEEP project, for example, that has to do with expansion and renovation of schools. And we have to say, okay, this school is emergency, immediate. We cannot halt work on this school. But this school, we could afford to push it back by a year. And we can use funds from that project to do devices. Or you go to Project B and say, okay, we can take 500,000 from here. This is how it works. People sometimes speak, and for those who don't understand how government works, they are left with the impression that you just go and take the money from somewhere it's hanging and you pick it from a tree and you just spend. It doesn't happen that way. Something is affected every time you do something new. But these are capital projects where sometimes you have grant funds. So in one case, as it relates to devices, and I can specify the devices for primary school teachers, that's the laptops, for primary and secondary school teachers, and for primary school students. These resources were from grant funds from the Caribbean Development Bank and part loan agreement from the Caribbean Development Bank that we were able to go to the bank and discuss and negotiate and say, look at our situation. How do we reach our children? How do we get our teachers to reach students when teachers are complaining they don't have devices? We had a collective agreement that says in the secondary school, for example, I believe the union said, ministry, could you at least provide 6 devices in each school so that our teachers could share? But that is if you're in the classroom. So we had to go beyond this and say we can't give a school 6 devices if we are in lockdown. So we immediately decided, and we got the cooperation and support from the Caribbean Development Bank, and we decided to provide a device for every single teacher in the service. Way beyond what we had committed to. And that is why I would make this point. If government would go beyond what it committed to in terms of devices, why would government not want to pay 4% increase if it had the monies? The difference is that government had the monies available through capital projects, a loan/grant from the Caribbean Development Bank. So instead of giving you 6, we're going to give everybody.
Right.
Right? A massive increase to what was committed, but you had a way to do it. And what government is saying, going back to the 4% conversation, is that we just don't have it in this case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the devices is one, but when we decided we were going back to school, and as I told you, it's going to cost us like about $2 million per term if you're talking salary plus supplies, right? We decided we're going to go back, and the union said, well, if we're going to go back, you have to do certain things. And we agree, yes, we have to do some additional to protect people. But you don't protect people without having to spend additional.
Right.
So again, we had to go back. And let me give you this example. Because you see, sometimes if we don't understand the internal workings of government, it becomes difficult to appreciate certain things. So I'll give you this particular one. To be able to get these people back in schools, which was an agreement that we had with our stakeholders that we are going to provide additional support at the school level. Do you know that we had to take that first set of monies for this term from our school feeding program? And you know what we are here? We are here hoping that this situation subsides significantly so that it will not significantly affect the program to the end of the year. So we're saying, let us take this amount from maybe November, December, October, and hopefully by the time we get there, things are going to pick up, things are going to improve. So we are going to be able to collect back that money to put it back. Now the question is, what if it doesn't improve? What if it doesn't get better? And we believe, God, it will. But the point I'm making is that how government operates, it's not that you have a pool of money that is always there coming from some place that you can just access. And oftentimes it is just like our own personal budget. When you have to say, this month I cannot buy a new pair of shoes, I have to fight up with this one. Maybe I bring it to the shoemaker to put on a new heel because I cannot afford a new shoe. Or I say, the money I would have used to buy the new shirt, I'm not going to buy a new shirt, I'm going to buy a new shoe with it. It is the same way that government functions. It is exactly the same way that government functions with limited resources, but wanting to do the most that it can for all of its citizens.
Right, right. And that is, I mean, that is a lot of information. And I think we should take from this the fact that it's not that you guys don't want to do, it's not that government doesn't want to do, but your hands are basically tied.
I have relatives, I have very close friends that are teachers, Duncan. And I would love to be happy with them today or by Monday when they say to me they went to the bank and they saw their 4% increase. I would have loved that situation. But I've explained to them the reality is what it is. And if you translate that reality into your personal life, it becomes a little easier to understand that sometimes you plan to do things, but things come up, situation arise, and then it forces you, it puts you in an awkward position. You just can't do it. You have to delay whatever it is that you plan to do. But it's important to note this, that while government is saying, look, the recurrent side of our budget, we cannot access additional resources. It's not like you can go and take a loan to pay increases.
Right.
Nobody would take you serious. As a matter of fact, they think you have some mental issue, right? Going to ask somebody for a loan to pay a salary increase, they would wonder if you're okay, right? Yeah. So that's a challenge we find as it relates to finding the resources there. But government continues to do every other thing that is possible as it relates to all of those situations that we spoke about. So let us take school repairs as an example. A principal may call, teachers may complain, the roof is leaking, the window is falling out, this side of the school is broken, it's cracking, what have you. Now, note well that since COVID started, we never stopped our agenda for school infrastructure development.
Yeah.
And last year, in the midst of a crisis, we committed $50 million of investment into school development. We're even building new schools. Happy Hill Brizan, brand new school. Paradise Pre-Primary School, brand new school, millions of dollars. We just allocated contract. Work is underway, a wing at Bishop's College in Carriacou, over $10 million, over $7.8 million for Montrose SDA. PBC retaining wall that was falling down, and who knows, might have been down in the road on that street where the convent is. Mm-hmm. Over $4.5 million being spent there right now. The bottom line is, in the midst of a crisis, we never stopped. Why? Because these funds were available on the capital side. And so any person who is thinking normally and naturally would conclude that there's only one reason that the government is not doing this. It is because it is unable to do it. Now, had it been a situation of the reverse, where salaries were paid on the capital side and school repairs is paid on the recurrent side, guess what? There'll be no school repairs.
Right.
There'll be no tablets. There'll be no laptop. Right. And we would pay the 4% increase.
Right.
That is as simple as it is. And I just wish that we would all put ourselves in the position where we don't just understand, because reading this, it tells me that they're saying they understand the economic situation, they understand what is happening, right? But we want to go a little beyond knowing and understanding to reflecting that in the actions that we take.
Yeah.
So if you know the situation, you understand the situation, then you are going to say, okay, the conclusion is, let us work with the government, and next year, the following year, whenever we both agree that we're going to receive that 4%, we are going to get that 4% plus whatever else was committed for that time. But let us just get through the storm. Yeah. Let us just get through the storm. Remember, while we are talking about that 4% increase now, we don't know how long COVID is going to be with us. We don't know if the new strain is going to get here, that very soon we won't even be able to pay salaries because everybody would be home, everything's shut down. We don't know. We are trusting God that things continue as it's going on the improving trajectory, right? We are trusting God this is how it's going to play out. But none of us have the ability to conclude that this is what is going to happen 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. We are just assuming. And I think because things are going pretty well, we forget the reality of we don't have control over what happens in this situation. And all we are asking is for understanding, partnership to continue to get through this crisis and return to our normal operations, where we can then say, fair enough, revenue has returned to normal, we have been able to attract additional support, and let us go as we've been going. End of this month, we're going to pay that 4%, and we are going to continue doing all the other things that you believe this government is able to do.
Absolutely. So, Minister, basically it's a balancing act, putting priority on, a little priority on everything, because we don't know what is going to happen, as you said, in the next couple months. And for government to make a decision like that, and then later down the road we're unable to pay salaries, or we're unable to meet the necessary needs of the students or of the teachers in the education system, then the conversation surrounding, the conversation would be completely different.
Mm-hmm. Completely different. And I also want to say, Duncan, we have to think of our brothers and sisters who are not affected by salary increase. They're not affected. They don't even want to talk about salary increase now. All they want is at least a salary. We have to think about them too. Because while we are debating the issue of salary increase, let us remember how many persons are out there unable to get a salary.
Yeah.
Increase is not in their vocabulary right now. It's not in their thoughts. At least if they can just get a little job, they can get something to do. And I wish, quite honestly, that government was in a financial position that all of these people that were let go from the hotels and all these other places who lost their job, that we could have found a program within government that we could have hired them.
Right.
And you know what I believe? If government had the resources, government would have done that too.
Absolutely.
Right? So while we talk about salary increases, I'm not saying let's not think about it, let's not talk about it, but while we do that, in the midst of that, let us think, let us remember those who increase doesn't ring a bell for them. What rings a bell is, can I get a job? Can I get something to do? Can I feed my children? Can I send my children to school? How do you help me? What do you do for these people?
Absolutely.
And it is the same thing that we must remember as we speak about the increase in salary. We have to remember our brothers who are suffering. We have to remember them as we continue. And I'm sure that once government is in a position to do something more to help, look at the vendors, right? Take the vendors at the stadium as an example.
Yeah.
I remember the Prime Minister in a cabinet meeting making the point that if there's anything, let us see if we can do something to help them. Because they did not end up in this situation because of their doing, right? But they are deprived of the usual sales that they would normally get. And these are poor, ordinary persons coming from where they're coming from, working hard, sitting there all day, and for some of them going back home with nothing, right? But as you say, it's a balancing act. It's impossible to give what you don't have, right? And so those things are additional pressure on the government and those who manage the economy, because you want to help more, you want to give more, but you constrain by the fact that you just don't have more. And if you're going to give more, you have to take from somewhere.
Yes.
And the question is, where do you take? Take it from health and do less tests? Take it from health and give less protection to our nurses and doctors? Take it from education, don't buy devices, don't repair the schools? Where do you take it from? And if you're going to take it from those things, is it possible to do so based on the law, based on the rules of financial management? Will somebody have to account? Of course, somebody has to account. There are accounting officers in different ministries. And if any PS was to spend from capital to pay something in recurrent, now that person would be in serious problems.
Yeah.
Because there are laws and rules to guide your action, and that is why there's audit and there's investigations, because there are some things that are permissible and some things that are not. Some things you could do and some things you cannot do.
Yes.
Right? And if it is, or if it was, that anybody could just do anything, then we won't be having this conversation this morning, because we probably might not even be existing in these capacities, because it would be chaos.
Yeah.
If everyone in government could just do what they want, anyhow they want, don't care, pay anything, pay from here, when you can't pay from there, then we probably won't even have a government.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Minister, we are running out of time. I wish we had more time, because there's so much more that we need to discuss. But do you have any final thoughts, any final words that you'd like to share with the general public?
The final thought I have is that this is a difficult situation for all of us. We are all affected, adults as well as children. There are children in school right now, Duncan, taking counseling sessions because they are finding it difficult to cope with this crisis. There are children preparing for exams and they're finding it difficult to cope because of this crisis, right? It is a difficult time for all of us. And so the least we can do in this situation, is to try our best to understand the situation that we're in, to accept that There are some things, and there's the prayer of serenity. There are some things you change, and you could change, and you go ahead, you change it. And there are some things you don't have control over, right? And we are asking the general public to understand the government's position. The government has a track record of delivering. This government, at least I can speak specific now, this government has a track record of delivering, right? And whenever this government is unable to deliver, persons must know that there are conditions and circumstances that makes it impossible to deliver. And this is specific to the 4% increase. We totally believe the heading is very appropriate. Teachers deserve the 4%. I might not say every single teacher, but teachers in general deserve it. I totally agree. The government totally agrees. We are just saying that while we know that you deserve it, while we believe that you deserve it, while we are doing everything to give it to you, we have some challenges that you know we face at this time. Yeah. We've done everything that we could have done to try to find the resources. We have tried all possible means of seeing how we can come up with that 4% salary increase, and we have found it impossible to do so at this time. Yeah. We are saying, hold us to our commitment. We are going to pay that increase, but give us a little time to get out of this COVID situation that is making it very difficult for the government to manage its way through. Yeah. And that is all we are asking. You are asking that, yes, and at least with the PWU union, you are asking that government meet other requirements, meet other commitments. So, for example, what is the difference between paying a salary increase of 4% and making everybody who is temporary permanent? No, we're saying the same thing, basically, finding monies that you don't have. Yeah. And government is saying all that we want to do, that and more maybe. I don't think what government wants to do is just what it has negotiated with the unions. There are a lot more that government wants to do. So you want 6 computers. We say, no, we could give you 1 for every person. Let's give you. So government wants to do even more. But wanting to do even more is one thing, but having the resources to do it is another thing. Yeah. And I just appeal to the conscience of people to understand the situation that government is in. And I am very, very confident that once we are through this situation, this government is going to do what it said it was going to do, and to meet the commitment of salary increases to teachers and other public officers in the shortest possible time that it is able to do so. And it's all I can say, Duncan. We empathize, we understand, we know the pain, we know everybody would like to have an increase now, but it is just practically impossible to do it right now. Yeah. What do we do? Kill each other? Yeah. Fight with each other? Then would we be better off, right? Yeah. Do we destroy each other because we can't meet a commitment, or we work with each other because we cannot meet the commitment, so we will meet it sooner? Right? Yeah. And that's all we're asking. That is all we are pleading with the general public and our officers to understand the situation that we are in.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Minister, for taking the time to speak with us. I know it was sort of impromptu, but we really do appreciate you for making the time for us. And we hope to speak with you again soon on other matters, because there's so much renovation happening to so many different schools. So much has already been completed, and there's so much more going on in education. So we hope that we have more time to speak with you. But we are actually out of time here at the studio.
Thank you so much, Duncan, and I just want to wish all your listeners all the best for a very wonderful weekend.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right. All right, guys, and there you had it, a conversation with our Minister for Education, weighing in on from an educational standpoint, from the Ministry of Education as Minister of Education, and also from a government standpoint as Minister of Information as well, and on a moral standpoint as Minister for Religious Affairs also. So many hats right there, and of course we are grateful for that. And as she said, and I will also agree with that we do need to look into ourselves and make a decision based on that. There are people out there who cannot even speak off a salary. There are people out there who really are struggling. And if we are in a position where the 4% deferral is going to put government in a better position to help them, if it's going to put government in a better position to provide support to them, if it is going to put us in a better position as a country later down the line, because we don't know where COVID is going or what COVID is doing. Maybe COVID is just getting started. We do not know. So we cannot make these haphazard decisions that could really affect us. And if government is saying to you, listen, we can't do it, look, we are giving you our books. We are saying to you, we are laying ourselves bare to you. So you can make a decision on whether you believe we can do it or not. And you are saying, because as the letter says, be that as it may simply means we just don't care about what problems you're having, give us what we want. That is what be that as it may means. It means regardless of everything that we have said, that we understand, that we are disappointed, that we know the reasons why. It's there in the letter. Be that as it may, regardless of everything that you have just said, we don't care. That is what it shows. And that is it's telling. It's hurting as an individual who knows of people who are genuinely out of a job, unable to collect salaries, unable to collect $1. And here we are, basically trying to say to government, listen, we don't care the problems that you are experiencing. Inadvertently saying we don't care about the people who are struggling that you have to help as well.
The letter itself spoke about the vulnerable and people who later down spoke about they have always been there and they will always be there, the very letter. And that is true. We have always had vulnerable people. We will always have vulnerable people. But are you saying it doesn't matter to you whether these people live or die, whether they eat or don't? I just thought that the minister was very clear, very calm, and laid, a lot of facts that we already knew, but, the way in which she put it and placed it. I really do hope for those who listen and those who heard that if their views on this particular matter, this particular impasse at this time were different, that having heard the minister this morning, that they would have a second thought and a second look. Because, sometimes we can look at something and see one color, one picture. And when we take time off and go back and look again a second time in a more detailed way, then we sometimes understand the true picture much better.
And we also have to make note that the views represented in the letter, while it may come from the Grenada Union of Teachers, that is not the views of all teachers.
Definitely.
We have to make that absolutely clear. So when we speak, we don't speak to all teachers. We are addressing
we speak to all teachers, but we are addressing what came
from the body.
From the body, yes. And, some things in there may not fit and sink in with and be the thought of some of the teachers, while you may have some that may be urgent and saying that's the way we want to go. Others may be a little more conscious-minded and maybe a little bit more understanding to the present situation. But be that as it may, I think we are totally out of time now, my friends.
Totally.
And I want to say thank you again. Today we were hoping that we'd give an opportunity to people to call, to weigh in on the situation, to give their views. And we had the minister on, kind of impromptu as we said, but who gave a lot of information and more food for thought. So I want to advise those who really have something to say and want to get something to say, that God's willing, if we should survive the weekend and we make it on to Monday on another program, we'll open the lines very early Monday morning to continue the conversation conversation so you would have your say.
You would have your say.
So
Yes.
please think about the issue, meditate on it, listen to what the minister said, all that we have said, think about the letter, think about the 4%. It's your views, and we'll accept them on Monday, God's willing. Thank you for having been around and listened to Hard Talk. Do enjoy the weekend. Remember to be safe and to be secured. Follow the protocols, because it only takes the mistake of one individual.
Yeah.
One individual. Not the whole country, but the whole country will suffer as a result of one individual not following the protocols and getting the virus and spreading it. Community spread, we don't want in Grenada. The new variant, we don't even want it come close to Grenada. And it's in the region. There are several countries in the region where they have found it. So please, my brothers and sisters, please, Grenadian people, you're nice, you're happy-go-lucky people, as they say sometimes, but we have to be careful. COVID is real. COVID is not a joke, and COVID can kill. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend.
All right, guys, and we have come to the end of our program. And as we say here every day, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we don't ever want to be talking about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day and have a safe and productive weekend. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful day and stay tuned for the National Report.
Government commended for bringing relief through feeder roads project in Carriacou. We'll have the details to this story and more in the National Report. Welcome back. With the details to the news for Thursday, January 28th, 2021, I am Sherry-Ann Noel. The government of Grenada has been commended for helping to tackle the major road problem in Carriacou. 2 months after the sword-turning ceremony to signal the start of work on the Cherry Hill Road on the Sister Isle, work is now underway to improve the condition of the road and bring relief to motorists and residents in the area. It forms part of government's agriculture feeder roads project and entails the construction of 1 kilometer of concrete road and drains in the Cherry Hill area to the tune of $3.1 million EC. Contractor James Stafford of Skies Construction says government must be applauded for helping to alleviate the problems that have been experienced in that area. He says despite the inconvenience, residents of the area have been very cooperative since the beginning of construction. In addition to the 3,280 feet of road to be constructed, Stafford noted that the scope of the project also entails the construction of driveways, drains, cross culverts, and back walls, which he believes will bring relief not only to residents of the area, but also bus and taxi operators on the northern route who have been clamoring for better road conditions over the years.
It's a road that in the past, as some of the residents would say, they have never seen it work before. I can tell you, being a resident of Carriacou, the last time this road was worked would have been over 30 to 40 years ago. So it's a road that was well deserved, and it was a long way in coming. And now that the government has secured financing under the feeder road project, we have started on the 4th of January, and work is on the way. The residents can't believe, they're getting the road. They've been calling on for the road so much that now it's here, and it's like a shock. They can't believe. And we're getting full cooperation.
With no major challenges confronting them, Stafford is confident that it will be delivered on or before its 12-month timeline. An alternative route will be opened on February 5th. The project will create employment for over 100 construction workers, including women. Moving along, government was on course to record growth in 2020 and so would have been able to make payments towards the repurchase of Grenada shares from WRB. That statement by Senator Roland Bowler in response to pronouncements made by Labour Senator Andrew Lewis on Wednesday during the sitting of the Upper House. Senators added their voices to the resolution put forward by Leader of Government Business, Senator Simon Steele, to affirm the settlement of the award between the Grenada Private Power Limited and WRB Enterprises, Inc. as claimants and the Government of Grenada as respondent. Senator Bowler explained that had it not been for COVID-19, government would have recorded a surplus and would have been in a better position to make the payments.
For the first quarter of 2020, the report would show that based on the projected earnings for the first quarter of 2020, it surpassed that of what was projected and surpassed that of 2019. So in other words, it meant that had it not been for COVID-19, again for 2020, if nothing else happened, the government was on course, I believe, to do well so that we could have seen surpluses in our budget. And I dare say that with the kind of management that we had seen over the years, if it was not for COVID 2020 and the savings, there would have been a way to find some resources to at least make payment. I don't know if we would have found the amount we did, but I believe from what we have seen, there would have been a way to find that because the government was on track to do well.
Senators Nolan Cox and Winston Garway emphasized how the sale in 1994 inhibited the country's ability to grow.
These 80 years, we only had 26 of it, I believe, so far. My colleague representing the business sector can attest to the challenges that business have to undergo in terms of meeting their monthly commitments for energy costs. We believe that this has significantly affected the manufacturing sector in Grenada and more so the agriculture sector to a greater extent.
When you will have a country giving up its sovereign rights to a foreign entity, what you have actually done is to give away your ability to protect the assets and patrimony of the country. And you're telling me this is not a straitjacket? It's more than a straitjacket.
President of the Senate Chester Humphrey said he was unsupportive of the sale back in 1994, and his position has never changed.
That share purchase agreement was an obscene and atrocious act of sale, with nothing in the past that equaled it. That was my individual, collective position then, and it is now.
Minister for Foreign Affairs, International Business and CARICOM Affairs, Honorable Oliver Joseph, explained in a recent press conference that government had to review all capital projects where money was not spent because of the lockdown to recoup money for repurchasing the shares. This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
Calypso fans, the 9 finalists to challenge the reigning independence Calypso monarch Sean Nas, the Sour Serpent, on Friday, February 5th at the National Stadium have been selected. Admission is free from the comfort of your homes. Will Sour Serpent hold on to the reign, or will the crown change heads as Sheldon Douglas, Anthony Darius, Croqueta, Jermaine Simon, Teddy Christopher, Philanda Jeffrey, Alicia Alexis, Edison Francis, and Anthony Etienne all vie for the coveted crown. Time alone will tell, so join the National Celebrations Committee in what promises to be an evening of great calypsos. Carried live on GIS Channel 22, the National Celebrations Committee, and GIS Facebook pages and YouTube channels. Remember the date, Friday, February 5th, 6 p.m. The virtual staging of the 2021 Independence Calypso Monarch, building together a safer, more resilient nation in these challenging times.
Welcome back. Disaster management will be improved this year as the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, highlights its new strategic plan to build resilience, capacity, and strengthens relationship with key stakeholders. The agency's Public Relations Officer, Austin Crosby, highlights some of these plans.
2021 is anticipated to be a game-changing year for disaster management in Grenada, guided under the pillars of capacity building, fostering relationships with key stakeholders, and attracting fresh faces to the disaster management process. Disaster Coordinator Mr. Benedict Peters spoke to the objectives of the plan.
The objective is to build the capacity within the Secretariat. I'm of the opinion that what happens within the agency, which as we understand is much larger than the Secretariat, the staff must have a good understanding of what is happening, why is it happening, and how they could play a better role in making it happen.
Staff at the agency has been engaging in a series of capacity building workshop and familiarization sessions aimed at sharing institutional knowledge.
We're also trying to build some institutional memory. People like me and others, we are going out. So if we have the equipment and the facility, we should now try to store information so that we'll build capacity. So as persons move on, the information and the contributions they make will remain and others can learn from it.
Sharing on the expectations of the agency for 2021, Mr. Peters says we hope to build a framework on ways to build resilient communities in the state of Grenada.
We hope to develop a criteria for the community where we could develop community resilience. So we are now putting in place different methods to develop a criteria for community resilience. So when we go out to the community, we will identify a community, most likely in both coordinators, community programs district, where we're going to work and build the information from that community to guide the assessment of its resilience. And that is one of the things that will happen in 2021.
Another focus area will be the engagement of more people to serve in the disaster management process.
Disaster management is about numbers. You know, having one person knowing one thing is not enough because we never know what will happen. So you have to also get, and it's a number of persons, different persons understanding what is happening is also important. So we'll have to engage a number of people to get numbers because that's how we get help, by numbers. So we'll have to engage different organizations to work along with the agency to build the numbers.
On Tuesday 19th and Thursday 21st January, staff were engaged in 2 internal workshops on the use of the communication equipment and relief management, followed by another session on Monday 25th, reviewing the country's National Disaster Management Plan. I am Austin Crosby from the National Disaster Management Agency PR Unit.
Thank you, Oslin. Grenadian young leader Bevan Chadel Charles is among 20 young individuals from 18 countries who have been announced as finalists for this year's Commonwealth Youth Awards. The awards recognize outstanding Commonwealth young people whose projects are transforming lives in their communities and helping to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. More than 1,000 entries from 43 Commonwealth countries were received last year. The finalists were selected across each of the awards' regional categories following a rigorous judging process. This year, the award have expanded to include 5 regional categories: Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Europe and Canada, and the Pacific. The top finalists from each region will be announced as the regional winner at the official awards ceremony on March 10, 2021. The ceremony will be held virtually for the first time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Of these 5 regional winners, 1 outstanding young person will become Commonwealth Young Person of the Year 2021. All 20 finalists will each receive a trophy, certificate, and £1,000 to expand the impact of their projects. Each regional winner will receive £3,000, and the overall Pan-Commonwealth winner will take home a total of £5,000.
Grenada, all ya come home, me dey home. Only for all who don't know, is half Grenadian. I is half Guavarian. You understand? And I have family in here tonight, you know. I love all you too bad. Mr. Mitchell, pleasant night to you, sir. I want all you to protest as Mr. Mitchell and tell him, give Sandra she Grenadian passport. I ain't all you. All who agree with me say yay. Well, Mr. Mitchell, you lost, you know our choices. Sun rises slowly over the hills. Everywhere is golden sunlight, but still, most likely Saturdays are crowded. Their days and dark days are shrouded. They don't smile and they never will. Only vultures get their fill. Empty promises is what they get. No running water from year to year.
Former Calypso monarch Sandra Desweekends Millington, who goes by the moniker of Singing Sandra, passed away on Thursday morning. The 64-year-old Trinidadian Calypsonian, who won the Calypso monarch title in Trinidad in 1999 and 2003, will be remembered for her prowess in Calypso over the years and her appearances at the Guave Fisherman's birthday celebrations. The Guave Improvement Committee in Grenada and the people of St. John also mourn the loss of a woman whom they say has touched the hearts of many with compelling commentaries. GIS spoke with committee chairman David Hopking, who remembers Singing Sandra as a respected and well-articulated individual.
It is with great sadness that we mourn the passing of Singing Sandra. For us in Guave and for the Guave Improvement Committee, she is very much part of us. She has performed many times at our fishermen's birthday celebrations. And you know, sometimes like you get an artist to come into Grenada, you have to put them up in hotels and so on. But Singing Sandra was different. When she comes to Grenada, whether to Guave to perform or anywhere, Guave is like her home. She moves around like this is her place. And we celebrate her and her music and the lovely renditions that she has put out there, renditions that touch the soul.
And with that story, we come to the end of the National Report for Thursday, January 28th, 2021. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Sherry Noel, thanking you for viewing.